Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Hi there. It is Sunday night. That means it is normally Benchley night, but tonight it is Thurber night because we are launching our way into My Life in Hard Times, James Thurber's greatest work. And it's nice to be here. I see one person is watching, and that's a delight. That one person, thank you so much. I know there's a football game on tonight. Terry Hudson, hi there, Terry Hudson. How are you? Hi, Betty Sue. Ladies and gentlemen, Betty Sue is down in Austin, and she has a cold or she has a flu. She does not have the dreaded coronavirus. She does not have Kaveffe virus. But she does have some yucky thing. And I was reading to her earlier today. And if you don't yet have a copy of Workplay Every Day, go to workplayeveryday.com and pick up a copy. Help Betty Sue get better. You'll also see tonight, I am just putting down there at the bottom of the window here, donate to the LSPDGF, the Liberal Snowplowing Do-Gooder Fund. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I have a project I'm working on. It's a small project, but it's pretty interesting. I got a call. I do this stuff for the Bellows Falls Opera House. I got a call last week from a feller in Claremont who works with a gay outreach organization, and they want to sponsor a Classic Film Wednesday for June for Pride Month. And they suggested a movie called Pride, which I have never heard of. And I watched it, and it is absolutely wonderful. It is about during the Thatcher era in England. It's a true story, fictionalized, but true story. During the Thatcher era, when Margaret Thatcher shut down all the coal mines in Wales, a group of gays and lesbians got together in London and raised a ton of money for the Welsh miners. And the movie is an utterly charming depiction of what apparently really did happen, which was a bunch of flamboyant gay folks giving money to a bunch of homophobic miners, and everybody ended up absolutely adoring one another. And anyway, so we're going to show that in June. That's been sponsored. But my good friend, Mr. John Langford, who is a Welsh singer-songwriter, he is, well, I texted him and said, have you ever heard of this movie? And he was like, oh, it's one of my favorite movies. And I said, is it true? He's like, it's absolutely true. It's fictionalized, but this really did happen. I said, are you by any chance going to be in the Eastern United States in June? And he said, yeah, actually. And I said, would you care to come to Bellows Falls, Vermont and do a set of music and talk to the assembled multitudes about, what actually happened at this when we do the movie screening? And he said, I would love to. So I need to raise some money to get him a plane ticket and a hotel room and a little bit of cash. He basically said a place to sleep, a plane ticket, and beer money is all he needs. But if you can reach into your pockets, ladies and gentlemen, reach into your pockets, donate to the Liberal Snowplowing Do-Gooders Fund, and help bring John Langford to Bellows Falls, Vermont, to talk about this remarkable movie, Pride, and I urge you, watch it. It's like the Full Monty in that it's this wonderful, charming, very human movie, except no one takes their clothes off. It's not that kind of movie, folks. Anyway, join us. Okay, so we've got 13 people watching. I have gone on and on long enough, and it's a time to thank a few people who were kind enough to contribute tonight to the Liberal Snowplowing Do-Gooder Fund. And that, of course, is the indubitable Ms. Terry Hudson, the great Gary Pierce down there, sidelined in Bonneville, Massachusetts, The bears are getting closer and closer, and yet with his foot surgery, he must hobble about. The bears closer, clawing at the door frame. He is waving his crutch. He is keeping them at bay, but yet he still has time. He still has time to contribute. Thank you, Mr. Gary Pierce and his wonderful wife, Aileen Cortez. Out there, Ms. Catherine Fisher, excellent artist, steadfast human being, gifter of gifts. She gave me a gift, ladies and gentlemen. I finally found the box, and I still have yet to open it. I'm so sorry, Catherine Fisher. I totally forgot today, but I've got it, and I'll be opening it tomorrow. Thank you, Catherine Fisher. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, helping John Fetterman with his auditory issues, or his visual issues, or his height issues, because also with height issues is my very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his excellent wife, Elise. Thank you all so much for donating. And now the rest of you, get out there right now. Toss a few dollars. Liberal snow plowing, do good or fun. Bring John Langford to Bellows Falls, Vermont. You will not regret it. You will not regret it, ladies and gentlemen. And now, The Night the Bed Fell by James Thurber. I suppose that the high water mark of my youth in Columbus, Ohio, was the night that the bed fell on my father. It makes a better recitation unless, as some friends of mine have said, one has heard it 5 or 6 times already, than it does a piece of writing, for it is almost necessary to throw furniture around, shake doors, bark like a dog to lend the proper atmosphere and verisimilitude to what is admittedly a somewhat incredible tale. Yet it did take place. It happened then that my father had decided to sleep in the attic one night to be away where he could think. My mother opposed the notion strongly because, she said, the old wooden bed up there was unsafe. It was wobbly, and the heavy headboard would crash down on my father's head in case the bed fell and kill him. There was no dissuading him, however, and at 10:15, he closed the attic door behind him and went up the narrow, twisting stairs. We later heard ominous creakings as he crawled into bed. Grandfather, who usually slept in the attic bed when he was with us, had disappeared some days before. On these occasions, he was usually gone 6 or 8 days and returned growling and out of temper with the news that the Federal Union was run by a passel of blockheads and that the Army of the Potomac didn't have any more chance than a fiddler's bitch. We had visiting with us at this time a nervous first cousin of mine named Briggs Beall, who believed that he was likely to cease breathing while he was asleep. It was his feeling that if he was not awakened every hour during the night, he might die of suffocation. He had been accustomed to setting an alarm clock to ring at intervals throughout the night until morning, but I persuaded him to abandon this. He slept in my room, and I told him that I was such a light sleeper that if anybody quit breathing in the same room with me, I would wake instantly. He tested me the first night, which I had suspected he would, by holding his breath after my regular breathing had convinced him I was asleep. I was not asleep, however, and I called to him. This seemed to allay his fears a little, but he took the precaution of putting a glass of spirits of camphor on a little table at the head of the bed. In case I didn't arouse him until he was almost gone, he said, he would sniff the camphor, a powerful reviver. Briggs was not the only member of his family who had his crotchets. Old Aunt Melissa Beall, she could whistle like a man with 2 fingers in her mouth. She suffered under the premonition that she was destined to die on South High Street because she had been born on South High Street and she had been married on South High Street. Then there was Aunt Sarah Schoaf, who never went to bed at night without the fear that a burglar was going to get in and blow chloroform under her door through a tube. To avert this calamity, for she was in greater dread of anesthetics than of losing her household goods, she always piled her money, silverware, and other valuables in a neat stack just outside the bedroom, with a note reading, "This is all I have. Please take it and do not use your chloroform, for this is all I have." Aunt Gracie Schoaf also had a burglar phobia, but she met it with more fortitude. She was confident that burglars had been getting into her house every night for 40 years. I remember my dad reading that line to me. I thought that was the funniest line ever. The fact that she never missed anything was to her no proof to the contrary. She always claimed that she scared them off before they could take anything by throwing shoes down the hallway. When she went to bed, she piled, where she could get at them easily, all the shoes that there were about the house. Five minutes after she'd turned off the light, she would sit up in bed and say, "Hark!" Her husband, who had learned to ignore the whole situation as long ago as 1903, would either be sound asleep or pretend to be sound asleep. In either case, he would not respond to her tugging and pulling. So presently, she would arise, tiptoe to the door, open it slightly, and heave a shoe down the hall in one direction, and its mate down the hall in the other direction. Some nights she threw them all. Some nights only a couple of pairs. But I'm straying from the remarkable incidents that took place during the night that the bed fell on my father. By midnight, we were all in bed. The layout of the rooms and the disposition of their occupants is important to an understanding of just what later occurred. In the front room upstairs, just under Father's attic bedroom, were my mother and my brother Herman, who sometimes sang in his sleep, usually Marching Through Georgia or Onward Christian Soldiers. Briggs Beall and myself were in a room adjoining this one. My brother Roy was in a room across the hall from ours. Our bull terrier Rex slept in the hall. My bed was an army cot, one of those affairs which are made wide enough to sleep on comfortably only by putting up, flat with the middle section, the two sides, which ordinarily hang down like the sideboards of a drop-leaf table. When these sides are up, it is perilous to roll too far over the edge, for then the cot is likely to tip completely over, bringing the whole bed down on top of one with a tremendous banging crash. And this, in fact, is precisely what happened. About 2 o'clock in the morning, come on up, Sharbs. We have a Charbonneau, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Charbonneau. Charbonneau has been achieved. Say hi to the audience, Charbonneau. Nope. Charbo butt in the face time. Yes. This, in fact, is precisely what happened about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was my mother who, in recalling the scene later, first referred to it as the night the bed fell on your father. Always a deep sleeper, slow to arouse, I had lied to Briggs. I was at first unconscious of what had happened when the iron cot rolled me onto the floor and toppled over on me. It left me still warmly bundled up and unhurt, for the bed rested above me like a canopy. Hence, I did not wake up, only reached the edge of consciousness and then went back. The racket, however, instantly awakened my mother in the next room, who came to the immediate conclusion that her worst dread was realized. The big wooden bed upstairs had fallen on father. She therefore screamed, "Let's go to your poor father!" It was this shout, rather than the noise of my cot falling, that awakened Herman in the same room with her. Excuse me. Charbonneau is now stretched out in front of me. So if he ends up sitting on the keyboard and disconnecting us, that's what happened. She therefore screamed, "Let's go to your poor father!" It was this shout, rather than the noise of my cot falling, that awakened Herman in the same room with her. He thought that my mother had become, for no apparent reason, hysterical. "You're all right, Mama," he shouted, trying to calm her. They exchanged shout for perhaps 10 seconds. "Let's go to your poor father," and "You're all right." That woke up Briggs. By this time, I was conscious of what was going on in a vague way, but did not yet realize that I was under my bed instead of on it. Briggs, awakening in the midst of loud shouts of fear and apprehension, came to the quick conclusion that he was suffocating and that we were all trying to bring him out. With a low moan, he grasped the glass of camphor at the head of the bed, and instead of sniffing it, he poured it over himself. The room reeked of camphor. "Wow! Ah!" choked Briggs, like a drowning man, for he had almost succeeded in stopping his breath under the deluge of pungent spirits. He leapt out of bed and groped toward the open window, but he came up against one that was closed. With his hand, he beat out the glass, and I could hear it crash and tinkle in the alleyway below. It was at this juncture that I, in trying to get up, had the uncanny sensation of feeling my bed above me. Foggy with sleep, I now suspected in my turn that the whole uproar was being made in a frantic endeavor to extricate me from what must be an unheard of and perilous situation. "Get me out of this!" I bellowed. "Get me out!" I think I had the nightmarish belief that I was entombed in a mine. "Go!" gasped Briggs, foundering in his camphor. By this time, my mother, still shouting, pursued by Herman, still shouting, was trying to open the door to the attic in order to go up and get my father's body out of the wreckage. The door was stuck, however, and would not yield. Her frantic pulls on it only added to the general banging and confusion. Roy and the dog were now up, one shouting questions, the other barking. Father, furthest away and soundest sleeper of all, had by this time been awakened by the battering on the attic door. He decided that the house was on fire. "I'm coming! I'm coming!" he wailed in a slow, sleepy voice. It took him many minutes to regain full consciousness. My mother, still believing he was caught under the bed, detected in his "I'm coming" the The mournful, resigned note of one who is preparing to meet his maker. "He's dying," she shouted. "I'm all right," Briggs yelled to her. "I'm all right." He still believed it was his own closeness to death that was worrying Mother. I found at last the light switch in my room, unlocked the door, and Briggs and I joined the others at the attic door. The dog, who never did like Briggs, jumped for him, assuming that he was the culprit in whatever was going on. And Roy had to throw Rex and hold him. We could hear Father crawling out of bed upstairs. Roy pulled the attic door open with a mighty jerk, and Father came downstairs, sleepy and irritable, but safe and sound. My mother began to weep when she saw him. Rex began to howl. "What in the name of God is going on here?" asked Father. The situation was finally put together like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. Father caught a cold from prowling around in his bare feet, but there were no other bad results. "I'm glad," said Mother, who always looked on the bright side of things, "that your grandfather was not here." All right, ladies and gentlemen, that ends the first chapter of My Life in Hard Times by James Thurber. James Thurber's greatest work. We'll have a chapter each week for the next month and a half. Urge you to join us. And remember, toss a few dollars. The liberal snowplowing do-gooder fund. Bring John Langford to Bellows Falls, Vermont to celebrate Pride in June at the Bellows Falls Opera House. You take good care, and we'll see you next week. Excuse me, Charbonneau. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.